Like we were discussing earlier, for me, one of the most important parts of the recovery program is not just abstaining from alcohol, abstaining from substances, but it's becoming someone that's not miserable because you're abstaining. I had an easy time, and I know that's not true for everybody, just not drinking. I could force myself not to drink. I could put myself around people where I couldn't drink around them. I could, you can check into a facility. There's many ways to force yourself not to use. But the real work is embracing what you're doing and embracing change and trying to work on yourself so you're not someone that's miserable just because you're not using.
So like ego deflation, identifying the things about yourself and being self-aware, I guess is really what you're saying, is when you realize that you have alcoholism and you remove the alcohol, you still have the ISM, the inside me, that needs to be worked on,
Yeah.
I guess, is what you're saying.
Absolutely. And just, it can manifest in anybody. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be alcohol or drugs. Some people self-harm. Some people overeat. Some people overexercise. There's many different ways to have addictive behavior. Some people are workaholics. I believe it's all the same disease. And all these people need to work the same kind of program. And that's filling a hole inside of yourself that you're trying to fill with something else.
Identifying what that hole in the soul is that you're trying to fill and work on that. And it's not just remove the alcohol and drugs and you're done. And I don't know, the thing is, how do you find the ways to drive that point home to people? And in the end, it's a we program, right? It's the power of we. I by myself get drunk, we stay sober. And doing that work together, I think the power of connection and working with someone else and helping them see that is super powerful. But it doesn't always happen, is my experience. See people that have been around and the alcohol and drugs have been removed and they're still the same miserable, irritable, discontented person, and you just wonder, are they ever going to get it?
And I see that too, yeah. And it's like they tell you to go into programs, especially when you are picking a sponsor. And I know some people rush into picking sponsors. They just want to get one as quick as possible. I actually took my time to find a sponsor, and I finally did find one that was perfect for me, but I waited to find someone that had what I wanted. And yeah, you will go in the rooms, and sometimes these people can stay dry, but you look at them and they're not much better, and that's the difference. And not to say there's anything wrong, like we're all staying sober one way or the other, but I do think there's a better way.
I think I was fortunate that it's almost like my sponsor found me, that there was something spiritual about that connection. And I also think it's the same thing with finding a therapist. So if you're gonna be in a program of recovery, you're gonna work a program, a mutual support group program for that connection, but then staying in therapy and the things that you're identifying and the things that are popping up, being able to work on those in therapy with somebody, and that's not easy either, finding a therapist that you can connect with. It's not just you walk in the first session and that person you're going to hit it off with and keep going there. That whole process, the ability to do that kind of work, self-introspection with somebody that really gets you and understands you, that's not easy either.
It's difficult to find, but not impossible, and it does take work. I don't like to sugarcoat it to people, telling them that, it will be difficult at first, but it's so worth it. Even in my, I'm an AA guy myself, and the promises, the promises come true sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. Some of them came true for me very quickly. Some of them took longer, but they have all come true for me.
If you're willing to work for them.
Absolutely.
Right? If you're willing
it
to
takes
do the
work.
work.
Yeah, and it's not easy. And you mentioned at the very beginning, ego deflation. And that's so important. You go in thinking, we're all egomaniacs as part of the reason that got us here, and we won't admit that we're here because of ourselves. It's everyone else's fault. Or there's something outside that's driving me to do this. We all know that we will find a reason to drink. We'll find an excuse. It doesn't matter, I had a bad day, I'm going to drink. I had a great day, let's have a celebration. It's us.
Don't you think that that's what a lot of treatment programs miss, is that whole part? I think people go in the beginning stages, you're getting medically stabilized and dealing with withdrawal management to make sure that you're safe, and then you get into what's supposed to be the meat of an addiction treatment program. And I think the part of helping people understand the work it's going to entail for them to stay in long-term recovery and really work on themselves. That hard work comes by doing these following things. I think they miss that, and then people leave. It's time for discharge. Mm-hmm. People are sent on their way, and then they get back out into the real world and are lost and don't know what really is what's supposed to come next.
Kind of like the pink cloud phenomenon, and you get clean and everything's great, and you're in a program, and you're secluded from the real world, and you think you can handle it, and you come out thinking everything's going to be great. From now on, here on out, everything's going to be amazing. But that's not the reality. Life is still going to life. Loved ones are going to pass away. You might get fired. You might, life is going to continue to happen. And the important part is when you come out and when you do this program, you realize that you don't have to drink, you don't have to use, you don't have to overeat, whatever your, drug of choice may be. That might not even be drugs. You don't have to do that to compensate. There's other ways.
Taking a daily inventory, working the program, mm-hmm. connecting with others. I mean, I know you're extremely connected. You're doing service work all the time. You're out there figuring out ways to give back and working on yourself at the same time. And you have that. You seem to have that balance, which isn't easy for people to find. How do you think you found it? I mean, what did it take for you to find that balance that you found?
There's the old saying of giving from an overflowing cup. So in the beginning, I definitely was a taker. I asked for help. I talked to my sponsor every day. I was a burden on them, and I wasn't bashful about it. And you take what you need to take to get better, and you work on yourself. You admit the hard things. I think for me, is just being honest with yourself. And that's where that ego deflation is. It's like, it sucks to admit that you're not normal. But in a other strange way, it's so beautiful to embrace that. And once I admitted I wasn't a normal person, everything changed. And I embraced my difference. I embraced the fact that there's certain things I can't do, but then I also realized there's so many things that I can do that others can't. I often think that I'm actually blessed to have had an addiction and to overcome it. I believe I'm a better person than I would have been if I had not been addictive, and just kind of continued to live my life in some sort of haze. And same thing, consumption. I still really believe that most normal people out there have their own addictive behavior that just didn't happen to be drugs and alcohol.
There's a priest that wrote a book many years ago called Blessed Are the Addicts, and he's not in recovery, and he talks about exactly that addicts and alcoholics are blessed because they've been given the opportunity to live two lives in one lifetime. The chance to start over, start anew, and live a better life. And that not everybody finds that. Some people are stuck in the same difficult patterns and miserable life for many, many years to come, and they never get that. But because of the disease of addiction bringing us to what it does, we wind up having the opportunity to start anew and take a close look and start with a clean slate. I think that's a pretty cool concept.
Absolutely.
It's the other thing is that you're talking about that work and that I'm an imperfect person and I'm not normal, and it's a one day at a time thing. And once we get that and we truly follow that and truly believe in that, there's so many cliches around the programs and sayings, but that one in itself is that all we have is today, right? That tomorrow's not a promise, and that if I can work hard on, not being dishonest and self-centered and selfish in my daily living, and what can I pack into the stream of life today to be of service to others. And I always find that my day is so much better when I do that, and I'm aware of that and really taking it, piece by piece, one day at a time.
Absolutely. And for me too, I think about it as just like making, many small decisions. And I actually had that conversation with someone I'm trying to help right now, where they keep thinking they have that same thing with the pink cloud we just discussed. Like they think if they just change one big thing, then after that, everything's going to be okay. But it's not that. Like recovery, getting better is making good small decisions, multiple good small decisions every day. And at first, they don't seem like much. Get up, make your bed, brush your teeth. Start with the
Yeah.
basics, and those things add up like a snowball rolling down a hill. And over time, they build into something impressive. But it's not going to be one big slam dunk, grand slam, whatever you want to call it, that fixes everything. And I think that's something that people go into recovery expecting. And I think that sets you up for failure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think you're right. And I think that, they, when you're talking about being around people in the rooms, and, they say there's the old saying of, what happens to people who stop going to meetings? They're not there to see what happens to people who stop going to meetings. Mm-hmm. And I have a buddy that always says, yeah, Terry, kind of look at the other way of that. What happens to people who keep going to meetings is they're there to see what happens to people who keep going to meetings. And talking about those people that we see that aren't doing the actual work, the second stage recovery that you were talking about earlier, the importance of that. I think that's, where the rubber meets the road, is those that get into that whole second stage of, okay, I've gone to treatment, I'm medically stable, I'm detoxed, I know I'm healthy, I know the things that I need to do to stay healthy. Now I'm working in therapy, and I've identified the things in therapy that I need to do to continue to be well and work on myself to get better and work hard at that and work a program of recovery. Once I move in those directions and focus on what is it that I need to do to stay in long-term recovery, but to keep growing as a person, right? The lobster that gets really uncomfortable in the shell that it's in, and has to outgrow that shell, gets uncomfortable, right, in that tight shell. But eventually come out of that, and you find a new shell, and you keep growing. And it's an ongoing process.
And it's also okay to mourn that old person. Some people, they'll say that, I miss the fun party life. I miss that person. That's okay to a level. I mean, you are becoming someone new. And so an old self is dying. But that is a natural part of life. The only thing that's consistent in life is change. And it's trying to be stuck on those old things that keeps you stuck. And we all know what happens, as you said, what happens when you stop going to meetings. And I've been around long enough to see that myself now,
And you feel it. I know I feel it when I'm not growing, when I'm not working on myself, when I'm not doing the things that I need to be doing every day to manage my disease, like a diabetic or hypertensive has to manage their disease every day. If I'm not doing those things, or if I'm doing them and they're getting stale and I have to change them up a little bit and add to it, call more sober people every day and have more conversations and more prayer and meditation, more reading. I've got to do that. Otherwise, I feel it. Start feeling stuck.
Yeah, I'm absolutely the same way. Same thing. I'm not normal. I have to have my 2-hour morning routine every morning to not be a jerk all day. But it's important. Routine's important in that way too.
Yeah, ritual and routine. Ritual and routine, I think, are tremendous.